You know, people often say that home is where love begins, but for me, home was where betrayal was born. I was only 14 the night my parents threw me out. 14. Old enough to understand pain, but too young to know how to survive it. I remember the sound of their voices like it was yesterday. My father didn't raise his tone, but his words hit harder than any slap could. There's no money here. You're old enough to fend for yourself. My mother didn't even look me in the eye. She just handed me a small bag with a few clothes and turned her face away. That was it. No hug. No tear. Just the cold reality of being unwanted. That night, the streets became my new home. The cold concrete was my bed, and the sky was my blanket. Hunger clawed at me every hour, but what ate me most was the question, why me? What had I done so wrong that my own parents couldn't fight one more day to keep me? You see, when you're 14, the world looks like a jungle, and you're the prey. I had to learn fast. Every day was survival, dodging gangs, searching trash bins, begging for scraps. The nights were worse. That silence, it made me wonder if anyone out there even remembered I existed. But here's the thing, pain has a strange way of shaping you. While I slept under bridges and scavenged for food, I kept one thought alive: maybe one day, my parents will realize what they've done. Maybe they'll call me back. That hope, it kept me alive. And 6 months later, a piece of news came my way that lit up that hope brighter than ever before. A childhood friend found me, ragged and bruised by life, and whispered something I could hardly believe: my parents had struck gold. They had won the lottery. At that moment, I thought, this is it. This is my chance to go back, to finally belong again. But little did I know, the pain that awaited me at their doorstep would cut deeper than the night they first cast me out. When I heard my parents had won the lottery, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: hope. You have to understand, 6 months of sleeping on cold pavements, 6 months of eating from bins and running from danger, it changes you. But deep inside, I was still that 14-year-old who wanted nothing more than to hear his mother's voice, to feel like he belonged. So, I made up my mind. I was going home. I remember the walk like it was a scene from a movie. My heart was racing, my legs felt weak, but my mind was flooded with images of how it might be. Maybe my mom would run to hug me, maybe my dad would say, "Son, we made a mistake. Come back." For a moment, I let myself believe in fairy tales again. When I reached the house, everything was different. The broken walls I had once known were painted fresh, the compound had a brand new car parked proudly in it, and laughter echoed inside. They had truly struck gold. I stood at the gate, nervous, rehearsing what I would say. Finally, I knocked. The door opened, and there they were, my parents. For a second, I thought I saw surprise in their eyes, but then, it twisted into something else. "Why are you here?" my father asked coldly. I stuttered, I heard about the lottery. I just wanted to see you, to come back home." My mother's lips curled into something I can never forget. Not a smile, no, it was disgust. She said, "You can't stay here. Don't you see? We've been blessed since you left. You are bad luck. If you come back, you'll destroy everything we've worked for." Those words hit harder than the night they first threw me out. Bad luck? From my own mother? I begged. I reminded them I was still their son, still their blood. But they shut the door in my face. Just like that. I stood outside, listening to their laughter fade into the walls, and I knew, I wasn't wanted. Not poor, not rich, not ever. That night, as I walked away from what I once called home, something inside me snapped. The hope I had clung to for 6 months died right there on that doorstep. From that moment on, I promised myself one thing: would never need them again. If the world saw me as unlucky, then I would carve out my own luck. And I swore, one day, they would regret turning their backs on me. The night my parents rejected me for the second time, something inside me died, and something else was born. Hope was gone. Love was gone. All that was left was fire. A fire to survive. A fire to prove them wrong. A fire to make the same world that spat on me bow its head one day. At first, survival was the only goal. I begged less, and I hustled more. I learned to shine shoes for businessmen who never once looked me in the eye. I carried loads in the market until my back screamed with pain. I cleaned tables in small roadside joints for scraps of food. Every single coin I made, I saved. But here's the thing, when you're pushed to the wall, you start seeing opportunities no one else sees. One day, a man I shined shoes for forgot his newspaper. Out of boredom, I read it, and in there was an article about small trading. Buy low, sell high. It sounded simple, and I thought, why not me? So I took my little savings and started small. Very small. Buying used clothes, reselling them at a profit. It wasn't much at first, but it was something. I studied people, I studied the market, and slowly, I built connections. Within a year, I wasn't just surviving, I was running a hustle. And once the money started flowing, I didn't stop. I reinvested, expanded, and kept pushing. My clothes business grew into electronics. Electronics grew into real estate. And real estate. That's when the millions started rolling in. I had gone from a boy abandoned on the streets, to a man feared in the boardroom. From rags to riches. From rejected to respected. But life, oh, life has a way of balancing the scales. While my empire grew, my parents' fortune began to crumble. The lottery money they thought would last forever slipped through their fingers like sand. Luxury cars, lavish parties, fake friends. They spent without thinking, without planning. And slowly, the house that once shined with fresh paint began to crack. The car that gleamed in the sun started to rust. The laughter that rang through those walls faded into silence. They were losing everything. And as I watched from the shadows, a question burned in my chest: should I go back? Should I face them, now that the tables have turned? I knew one thing for sure. The reunion would come. But this time, it wouldn't be the desperate boy at their door. It would be me, successful, powerful, unbroken. And they would be the ones on their knees. Success changes you, but watching those who abandoned you fall from grace, that changes you even more. As my empire expanded, I started hearing whispers about my parents. At first, I ignored them. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. One day, I drove by the very house that had once been painted fresh and glowing with wealth. The sight nearly made me laugh. The paint had peeled away, the car in the driveway was broken down, and weeds had overtaken the yard. The home that once sparkled with pride now looked like a graveyard of bad choices. I didn't have to ask what had happened. I already knew. They had lived recklessly, spent without discipline, and trusted all the wrong people. The lottery money, the very wealth they rejected me for, was gone. The people who once cheered at their parties were nowhere to be found. Their so-called friends had vanished with the last bottles of champagne. And my parents? They were drowning in debt. And here's the twist of fate: the same child they called bad luck, was now the man everyone wanted to know. Every business owner shook my hand with respect. Every deal I touched turned to gold. But I wasn't in a rush. No. I let them sink deeper, let the weight of their mistakes crush them. Revenge isn't about speed, it's about timing. One evening, as I sat in my office signing off another multi-million-dollar deal, my secretary walked in. She handed me an envelope. I opened it, and inside was a desperate letter. From them. My parents. They had finally reached the bottom. They were begging for help. I read their words carefully, every plea dripping with irony. They spoke of hunger. Of cold nights. Of losing everything. My mother's shaky handwriting confessed they were sorry. My father's signature, once so bold, looked weak and broken. And I smiled. Because finally, the tables had turned. I decided it was time. Time to meet them face to face. Not as the boy they abandoned. but as the man they could never break. I arranged the meeting. A dramatic one. I wanted them to see me, to feel the weight of what they had lost, to look into my eyes and remember the son they threw away like trash. As I prepared for that reunion, one thought kept echoing in my mind: they thought I was bad luck. But in reality, I was the blessing they never deserved. The day of the reunion finally came. I pulled up in front of their crumbling house, the same one that had once been filled with laughter and pride. My car, polished and gleaming, stood like a monument to everything I had become. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the faded walls, the broken windows, the silence that screamed of misery. Then I stepped out. When they opened the door, I saw them, the parents who once threw me out at 14, who shut the door in my face after winning the lottery. But they weren't the same people anymore. Their eyes carried shame, their shoulders were bent with defeat, and their voices trembled when they spoke. "Son," my father whispered, struggling to meet my gaze. For a second, I let the silence hang. I wanted them to feel it, the weight of every cold night I had spent alone, every tear I had shed, every piece of dignity I had lost because of them. Finally, I said, "Do you remember the night you cast me out? Do you remember calling me bad luck?" They lowered their heads, unable to answer. I stepped closer, my voice steady but sharp. "When you were rich, you rejected me. You laughed, you shut the door, and you left me to die. But look at me now. Look at the boy you abandoned. That boy built an empire. That boy became a millionaire. That boy became a man without you." Tears rolled down my mother's face. My father clenched his fists, his jaw trembling. They wanted to speak, to defend themselves, but there was nothing left to say. And then, I did something they didn't expect. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a checkbook. "Do you know why I'm here?" I asked. "Not to spit on you. Not to laugh at your downfall. I came here because despite everything, you made me who I am. By abandoning me, you forced me to grow. By rejecting me, you pushed me to fight. You wanted me gone, but in the end, you made me stronger." I signed the check and placed it on their table. Their eyes widened at the amount. Enough to save them. Enough to keep them alive. "But understand this," I continued. "This is not for you. This is for the child you left behind. For the boy who deserved better. I don't owe you love. I don't owe you family. What I give you today is mercy." They broke down right there, apologies spilling from their lips, shame written across their faces. But no apology could erase the scars they had left on me. I turned to leave, my heart steady, my soul unshaken. And as I stepped into my car, I whispered to myself, loud enough for them to hear: "Revenge isn't always destruction. Sometimes, success is the sweetest revenge." And with that, I drove away, leaving them behind, not as their son, but as the man they created through pain.